Hello everyone, this is Inma and this is the last video of this 4-video series. On this one, I will show you all the details I'll work on to go from this to this. We will focus on the following details: eyelashes, adding a simple background, changing the color of the Lineart, adding textures, adding particles, adjusting colors, adding a blur effect. These are some of the many little details you can work on to have a more interesting illustration. Let's begin! I like to add extra eyelashes using a lighter color, so they stand out more. I create a new layer on top of the Lineart layer. I pick the base color for the eyes with the eyedropper, and I draw tiny eyelashes with mapping pen. I'm going to add some extra cuteness with the next step. I create a new layer on top of the previous one, and I set the blending mode to screen. I pick a star brush I downloaded from Assets, and I paint over the eyes and the eyelashes with it. To make the little stars stand out more, I'm going to change the color using the Convert to Drawing Color command on the Edit menu. I'm going to place the background layer at the bottom of the layer palette, under all the layers where I colored the character. I open the Material palette, where all my textures and patterns are saved, and I choose one that fits the illustration. After dragging and dropping it into the canvas, I resize the pattern until I like how it looks. Making image materials smaller is usually fine, but making them bigger might result on a pixelated image, so be careful. Now I want to have some color variation on the pattern, so I put a new layer right on top of it, and I set the blending mode to Color. I will use the soft airbrush and different colors to paint over some areas, so that the background isn't all pink. Once I'm more or less happy with the result, I put both background layers into a folder. I go to the Layer menu, Layer Mask, and click on Mask Outside Selection. Everything will disappear, but it's just hidden. Painting over it with any brush will bring back the background, so I choose some watercolor brush and start painting over the mask. You can also use the soft airbrush for a similar effect. When I use the transparent color, I hide the background again, and when I use the main or secondary colors, no matter what color they are, the background is revealed again. Now I want to edit the saturation of the colors a bit. I open the background folder and I go to the Layer menu, New Correction Layer, and I click on Hue Saturation Luminosity. I make the background brighter by playing with the saturation and luminosity bars. When I click OK, a correction layer will be created over the previous layers. Correction layers apply the desired effect while leaving the original layers untouched. If I want to go back to the original colors at some point, all I have to do is to hide the correction layer. There are many different types of correction layers you can play with, just give them a try. Using the same technique, I could apply any kind of background to my illustration. Remember the steps. Drag and drop the desired background, hide it by masking outside the selection, reveal parts of it with a watercolor brush or the soft air brush. Now that I have the background, it's time to edit the color of the line art so it's not pure black. There are some action sets you can download from assets to do this, but on this video I will do this process manually. First, I hide the line art folder. I right-click on the next visible layer and select the Merge Visible to New Layer function. This will create a copy of all visible layers into one single layer. The name of the layer was set automatically as Hair 2, so I will use that name to refer to this new layer. I drag the Hair 2 layer on top of the Line Art folder, I make the Line Art folder visible again, and click on the Clip to Layer Below icon for the Hair 2 layer, so that it can only be seen over the line art. Because the Line Art folder's blending mode is set to multiply, now the colors on the Hair 2 layer will darken the colors underneath too. You can turn the Clip to Layer Below function on and off to see what you are doing better. Now I right-click on the Hair 2 layer and I click on the Duplicate Layer function. I set the blending mode of the new Hair 2 layer to multiply so that colors become darker. I repeat this step to get a second layer on multiply blending mode, so colors become even darker. For this one, I go to the Edit menu, Tonal Correction, and click on Hue, Saturation, Luminosity. I lower the saturation a bit so the colors are less vibrant. I select all three layers, right-click on them, and perform the Merge Selected Layers function. Now I go to the Filter menu and I apply Gaussian Blur with a strength of 7. I click on the Clip to Layer Below icon again to see how the line art looks so far. I see it's still too bright, so I need further editing. I go back to Tonal Correction on the Edit menu, and this time I will choose Brightness Contrast. I lower both a bit. I go back to Tonal Correction on the Edit menu, and this time I choose Level Correction. I drag the first pointer to the right until I'm happy with how dark the line art becomes, then I click OK. Now I lower the opacity of the Hair 2 layer a bit, so the black underneath can be seen. I will add some manual extra details now. I create a new layer on top of the Hair 2 layer and I click on the Clip to Layer Below icon. Now I will manually paint over certain parts using a soft pencil or the soft airbrush. To finish the line art, I will create a new layer on top and I will paint some white lines over parts of the line art using mapping pen. This effect is more noticeable when colors are darker. Adding textures can help our illustration look richer. I open the material palette and select a folder where I stored all my textures. I randomly select one of them to test it, so I drag and drop it into the canvas. Make sure the texture layer is on top of all the other layers. I change the blending mode of the layer to Overlay, and then I lower the opacity until I like the result. Because this layer made my illustration too bright, I'm going to duplicate it and set the new layer's blending mode to Color Burn. There are some darker parts now, but I don't like the effect much, so I lower the opacity of both layers even more. I want to edit the colors on those layers a bit, But first I need to rasterize them. I do so by right-clicking on each of them and selecting the rasterize function. Now I can apply tonal corrections normally. I select Hue, Saturation, Luminosity on the Edit menu and I lower the saturation. I do the same process with the layer on Color Burn mode. By lowering the saturation, the original colors of that layer are lost and the original colors of the illustration are respected. I play some more with a new watercolor texture to see if I like the result. The more you play with textures, the more chances you have of finding one that looks right for your illustration. I'm going to hide all these watercolor textures and I will try a new look. I'm going to try a glitter texture now on Overlay Blending mode. I will do the same I did for the background. Go to the Layer menu, Layer Mask, Mask Outside Selection. I will then reveal parts of the texture with the soft airbrush. I will try one last texture for fun and then decide which one I like best. I hide the glitter texture and I choose a polka dot pattern to match with the background. I select one with white dots over a black background and then I set the blending mode of that layer to screen. Do you remember I explained on the previous video that black disappears completely on screen mode layers, so only the dots can be seen? I mask outside selection on this layer too and reveal parts of it with a soft airbrush. These are the 3 textures I applied. I like all of them, but the last one seems to fit the idea of my illustration best, so I will keep that one. Particles will help us get a prettier look for our illustration. I create a new layer between the texture and the Lineart layers. I select Mapping Pen and I paint some white particles over the eyes to simulate sparkles. Now I add some more white particles around the illustration, especially over the Lineart. I tend to paint them in pairs or in packs of 3 with an uneven separation between them. I also paint them in different sizes. I create a new layer and I choose the star brush I used for the eyelashes. Using white again, I leave little stars around the illustration, especially over the Lineart. I also set the blending mode of the star layer to screen. I create a new layer on top of all the other layers and set its blending mode to color. Using the soft airbrush, I will paint over parts of the illustration using different colors, so as to get a more colorful image. After I'm done, I'm going to create a new correction layer on top to make the colors stand out more. I select the Tone Curve Correction layer and I play a bit with the parameters. I lower the opacity of the correction layer so that the change is only slightly noticeable. This is the last effect I'm going to add. I right-click on the top visible layer and perform the Merge Visible to New Layer function. I apply Gaussian blur over that layer, setting the strength to 10. I mask outside the selection to hide the whole layer, and now I will bring parts of it back with a soft airbrush, like we did for the background and textures before. This helps give the illustration some depth. And that's it! I'm finally done with this illustration. I hope you enjoyed these videos as much as I enjoyed making them. Here is one last tip from one illustrator to another. Try on as many different brushes, effects, textures, etc. as you can. The best way of learning and developing new techniques is by practicing new things on your own illustrations. Continue being creative and see you next time! Bye bye!